Suzuki Wagon-R. It's a quirky little city car. It's a tiny little people carrier for presumably carrying, well, tiny little people. And they'd have to be shaped rather like that to fit into its rather square shape. I've looked at this car before, and when I did so, I criticised it for perhaps not going round corners particularly well. But that's really not particularly fair. It's very tall and very narrow, and you can't really criticise it for something that clearly it's never going to be very good at. So we thought we'd see how the thing does in a straight line. And that's why we've brought it here, to Santa Pod, where straight lines are very much de rigueur. So before we do anything silly out there, let's take a quick recap of what we've got here. This in fact is the Wagon-R Plus. It's a slightly broader and bigger derivative of the original Wagon-R. And the shades, well, they're for this, the interior. Be ready. Don't blame me, okay? Ooh, it looks like something Heidi stitched in the 60s. Definitely not the kind of thing you want to encounter with a hangover, but then this isn't ever going to be bought by the kind of people who know what a hangover is. But I suspect it's fairly durable. But here's an oddity. Considering the Japanese are such a small little people, and I can empathise with that, I don't understand this, right? In a nice small interior, why do we have what on this head? What's going on with that then? What? It's not necessary, is it? Clearly. I don't need that. Being fair though, in what is, after all, a very small vehicle, there's quite a lot of room. If we get into the back, you're sat slightly higher up than in the front, which gives it that nice powerful feeling. As you can tell, it's quite stylish. I'm sure I look quite good here. I'll look like this sort of thing. I think it's got a, you know, it's... We're standing in front of Alan's monstrous Capri. This thing really is a beast of a thing. This isn't the first year for this car though, is it?
No, last year I actually raced it in Sportsman ET, and that was my first season. After that I thought I needed to step up a bit, so hopefully we're moving up into Pro ET this year, and we're trying it out today and see what it will do.
Well, we've got your team fettling it at the other end, working away on it.
Yeah.
What have you actually done in the development? Because I know your father's here, and secretly he told me you've been working 14, 15, 20 hours a day on this, haven't been on holiday, this is all you've done. What have you done?
Well, last year it was actually a road car, and I decided to make the move from a road car into a full race car. And to do that, I thought we need a new engine to produce more power. We had to change the axle in it, put slicks on the back end, and lighten the car up as much as we can.
So you spent all of your money, most of your time,
that's right.
And how much faster? What are you actually going to gain?
Well, hopefully just over a second from last year.
A second?
Yeah.
It's a lot of work for a second.
Yeah, but that's drag racing.
Why'd you do it?
Because I want to go quicker. And the harder the buzz, the harder the pull, and the more you enjoy it.
Well, there's no argument with that. Look, I'm going to have a go later on.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll see you on the track, mate.
Okay.
And anything could happen. I've got to say, you're in like some sort of semblance of... I'm wearing flame retardant corduroy.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Is that all right? Do you guys wear special kit?
Well, we've got no makes underwear,
right.
With, just a flame retardant.
So it's like your fireproof pants?
Yeah, it's just regulations.
Well, I don't know mine are, but...
Yeah.
Right.
And so I've got a neck brace as well, which I'll have to wear for racing and stuff.
Right, neck brace.
Helmet.
Okay, I've got a fairly stiff collar on this shirt actually, so I think I'm probably all right. Look, all the best out there.
Yeah.
And I'll see you on the track.
Okay then.
All right then.
I'd like to see it.
We're going to do it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah? Oh really? Think that's a car, do you? Oh really? Just because your wheels are bigger at the back than at the front? You didn't even do a burnout. Amateurs, I did. My wheels are hot. These tyres are just... Go, green, go! Come on, baby! A second, come on! We're gonna get him. If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna win. We got 4, we've got a gear left. We're doing 45. Come on! Call that a car. Hasn't even done a burnout. Amateur. Don't know what he's doing. Yeah, and close your window as well. Rules of the road. These are the basics. People need to know this. Oh, hang on, we're going. Go! Come on, baby. You can do it. Just, yes! Whoa! 30. I've got 2 more gears yet. We really are. But a surprising amount of space really in this fairly small but pretty flexible interior. This is definitely a lifestyle vehicle. Only thing is, perhaps not this particular lifestyle.
What an absolutely marvellous car this is. This is Lord Beaverbrook's Rolls-Royce Phantom 6, a true luxury leviathan. I'd love to drive it, but today I'm driving something a bit more humble. I'm going to drive an Austin 7. In 1922, Herbert Austin launched this baby onto the British market. It was custom made for impoverished...
Not that one, Steve. Yours is over there.
Oh. Oh, all right.
There you are, Steve. That's what you want.
Thanks, Chris. But it's a Mini. Ever been had? Oh well, there you are. It's the car of the week. I'll give it a try. Okay, so it's a Mini, a 40-year-old example of a car still in production today, and this one is an Austin 7 Mini. The reason it was called Austin 7 was because it was felt it embodied many of the virtues of the 1922 original. It was cheap, it was affordable by a whole new class of people, brought motoring to the sort of people who before had a motorcycle or had to rely on the bus. But the thing that really made this car a tour de force was its technical great leap forward. It's a transverse front-wheel drive engine, the very first car in the world to have it. It also has hydroelastic suspension developed by Alec Moulton. There's enormous amounts of space in a very small car. It was a packaging revolution, and it won the hearts of everyone that drove it.
It's always said that Austin Morris never made any money out of the Mini, literally a few pounds per unit. In fact, I think Ford claimed they were losing £30 on each car. But nevertheless, it was the popular car for any young man to take his girlfriend out in.
Now, when the Mini was first conceived, it was aimed primarily at a market of people who'd never afforded a car before. But very rapidly, it found itself being bought by a rather more aristocratic sort of buyer. Thank you, James.
You're welcome, sir.
And one such aristocrat was a young Lord Montague of Beaulieu.
I had one myself. This is a 1959 model. This is the year it came out, and I remember that very well because I just got married, and I remember seeing it just before I left England to go to South Africa, and I couldn't wait to get back and buy one, which I did.
After a slow start, sales of the Mini grew rapidly, and the car became symbolic of the swinging 60s. So successful has the car been that the Metro that was designed to replace it has come and gone, and only now, 40 years after its launch, are we about to see what we are told is the Mini's replacement. Even this, however, does little more than pay homage to the Issigonis original, and is unlikely to be judged as important a car to the history of motoring as this, the Mini masterpiece.
Eventually, if Gordon Brown has his way, we'll all be pottering around in cars yay big. Noddy cars, your mum's shopping trolley, call them what you will, but these economic and affordable mini cars could well be the future for the hard-taxed motorist. But would you like to be seen in one? Let's put 3 of the leading contenders to the street cred tests. With the Chancellor continuing to pile taxes on the price of petrol whilst reducing taxes on the running costs of these small cars, they start to make a great deal of sense. But once you've shelled out your £7,000 or £8,000, what will they be worth a few years down the line? After 3 years and 36,000 miles, we think that the Seat Arosa will be worth around 55% of its original costs. It's a high build quality, VW parts, and since you can run it on short change, you'll be getting quite a large lump of your money back at the end of it. Not quite the same for the Fiat Seicento. We think about 40 to 45% after 3 years. The build quality is not quite as good, and these orange parts and the grey might start to look a bit tatty after 3 years. Now, traditionally the Deus don't do well in the second-hand car market. Some people don't feel comfortable that there's no distributor backup. But because we think these cars are going to become increasingly popular in the future, there's going to be a strong niche market, and we do think they'll sell well. And this one, again, about 40 to 45% of your original costs. Next, it's the TARDIS test. These cars are designed to feel bigger on the inside than they look from the outside. But do they? And even if there's plenty of space in the front, what are the implications for legroom and storage space in the back? The Seat Arosa passes the TARDIS test well. There's loads of headroom space up here, and the feeling of space is really helped by the acres of glass. Huge windscreen here, and look at the size of the door windows too, which really gives it a nice airy, bright feel to it. Now, the driving position's comfortable, but I'm what, 5'10", and already the seat is all the way back. So, what must it be like sitting back there? It's not very comfortable actually, there's nowhere to put my knees. Well, as you'd expect on cars this size, there's hardly any boot space whatsoever, barely enough to put a couple of heavy shopping bags. But they are all flexible, and the Arosa is no exception, because the back seats flip forward so that you can actually extend the back space if you need to. The Seat Arosa has just about as much interior space as the VW Polo, and this configuration is probably the most practical way of using it. The Seicento also has reasonable head clearance for someone of average stature like myself, and the feeling of light and space here is helped by a small sunroof up here, but it's a bit fussy, and I don't particularly like the way that you open and close it with this twist wheel, which is all a bit fiddly. There are plenty of places to put things, but I think the design is lazy and rather ugly. Look at this great big grey bucket affair. You can throw lots in, but it's all going to slide around. And if we thought that the legroom in the back of the Arosa was small, just take a look at this. What's he talking about? There's loads of space back here, until you pull the seat down. If you're offered a ride in the back of one of these, remember that the bus can sometimes be a better alternative. Good grief. Boot space, small, about the same size as the Arosa, but again, the back seat has this split fold arrangement, so with one half down, well, you can get a tiny passenger in the back and your week shopping, and if you put both sides down, well, it's not a bad little space actually. The Matiz is slightly narrower than the other two, and yet it still has the feel of a much bigger car, and that I think is due to the design of the front. The sloping windscreen means that you can't actually see the front of the bonnet, and there's this huge console area up here with loads of space, which reminds me of an MPV. And looking at the back, well, the seats look larger and more substantial than the others, and there does seem to be a bit more leg room. And look at this, tiny cars can still have 4 doors. The Daewoo Matiz is the winner of our TARDIS test because the back seat feels like a proper one, and although there's not a great deal of legroom, it's better than the others. Apart from fuel economy, another great benefit of small cars is that you can park them easily. You can squeeze them into spaces that those big cars just have to pass by. So let's put that to the test. This is the Seicento. Reasonable visibility through the mirrors here so that you can see what's actually happening behind you. And this one doesn't have power steering, so that makes it just a little bit heavier to handle. But let me see how I do here, putting it between the other two. And good turning circles on all 3 cars too, and that helps. The Daewoo Matiz is the one that really feels like you're driving a much bigger car because there's so much space in here compared with the Fiat. But the fact that it feels like a big car is quite disconcerting because it certainly doesn't drive like a big car. It's only got 800 cc's, it's much more sluggish than the Fiat, so don't think you're going to beat many people off the lights. Very conservative styling here at the front, and I'm also a bit dubious about the gear shifts. I think when you're changing up and down, sometimes you're not sure whether you're in 3rd gear or 1st, so that's a bit sticky, I think. Oh, and one last thing about the hopelessly underpowered engine. It sounds horrible. What do you think? Listen to this. Engine or bicycle dynamo? Of the 3, the sporty little Fiat Seicento, is the one that most reminds me of driving inside a go-kart, right down to this small leather-clad steering wheel, which is quite good fun, and the fact that it doesn't have power steering. It has a really good turning circle, this car, but you have to work quite hard with it. Here in the city, it's extremely nippy. Despite the fact that it's only got an 1100 engine, you really can streak away from the lights with the quickest of them. Now, I know earlier I was critical of the buckets, these storage areas, which are rather grey and boring, but on the other hand, look at the styling of all these funky little knobs and dials. Look at that RPM gauge, it's absolutely gorgeous popping up there. Its Achilles heel, I think, is road noise. Even at this speed, 30 miles an hour, you can quite clearly hear the noise of the tyres on the road. And of course, as you get faster onto the open roads, then that noise gets really very loud indeed, and you have to crank up the radio in order to concentrate on it. The Seat Arosa has an unusual piece of styling which I quite like. You know how picky we all are about the colour of our car, and then we spend most of our time sitting inside it not noticing what colour it is at all. Well, as you can see, Seat have actually brought a lot of the exterior colour inside. It's unusual, and I think it works really well. Now, this car has the largest engine of the bunch at 1.4, but interestingly, it also has marginally better MPG figures. So in terms of power and efficiency, I'd say this is the car to go for. And also because that engine is slightly bigger, it performs best of the 3 out on the motorway. I drove this up from London last night, and 200 miles I suppose, and although the road noise gets quite high, it was quite a comfortable journey. However, at the end, of course, I got out and just had to shout at everybody because I couldn't hear a thing. Hello, nice to see you. Sorry I'm a bit deaf. Road noise on the motorway. That sort of thing. The Seat Arosa 1.4 has an overall cost per mile of just 26.9 pence. This comes with power steering and steering adjustment. It has an alarm and an immobiliser. The airbag's an option. Of course, it has a radio cassette and the split-fold rear seat. The Fiat Seicento Sporting 1100 has an even better cost per mile at just 22 pence. Again, you'll get an alarm immobiliser as standard, alloy wheels, central locking, electric windows. Of course, again there's a radio cassette, and this too has the split-fold rear seat. And the Daewoo Matiz SE Plus with its 800cc engine. Here the cost per mile is 23.3 pence. Again, with this one you get alloy wheels, power steering, central locking. Once again, there's an alarm immobiliser, standard on most cars these days. There's driver's and passenger airbag in the Matiz, electric windows too, radio cassette, and once again, for those space options, it has a split-fold rear seat.
I think they're quite nice, but they are small. I do prefer larger cars. From like a family point of view, I mean, getting all the kids in the back and all your stuff, it might be a bit of a squash. With the price of petrol going up as well, motoring is becoming much more expensive, so I think the more people you can entice into the smaller cars, the better it's going to be in general, because the roads are like extremely cluttered.
Yeah, it would be an embarrassment to me to drive one because I'm used to a bit bigger car.
I don't very much like that one. I think that's typically a woman's car, that one.
No, I think I'd have to maybe get in one and drive it before I could actually give an honest opinion, but don't look too inspiring at the front, no.
These cars are nippy, well-styled, fun, and at a third of the cost of an A-Class, they've got to be well worth looking at. The Seat Arosa, it's comfortable and quick. The Fiat Seicento has fantastic manoeuvring abilities. And the Daewoo Matiz with its dual airbags and air conditioning is our winner today. If you're looking to beat those motoring taxes, think small.